our work right now on the planet is to bring honoring and sanctity to the invisible just as much as the visible. The invisible results are things like feeling good, things like feeling connected, things like our health, our well-being, a feeling of joy, pleasure.
Embodiment can't be faked. Once you're in an open state where you actually can see through a clear lens, you're not clouded by fear, you're not clouded by the amygdala, you're not clouded by the society's news and all the fear-based stuff, and you're just with you. Then you get to decide where you think we actually are.
It is possible to navigate pain with grace.
Energy is information. We're here to experience the full spectrum.
That worthiness is hard for you. There's nothing wrong with you. It is a muscle that we kind of have to learn how to access. You are not disempowered, and you have power in every area of your life all the time.
I believe that chronic illness is an opportunity for us to heal.
Health, it's a choice. Listening to your body if you so choose.
My prayer for the world would be that they would know the infinite love of God.
Aloha and welcome to the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast with your host, Jen Mons. Join me each week for soul-inspired, conscious conversations around awakening to your soul purpose through 5-element well-being. Thank you so much for joining in. Hello, and welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast. We are coming back together again this week to uncover and create your empowering money story. So if you've been listening in the past couple of weeks, the first week I helped you create your prosperity roadmap. The major thing that we did is we uncovered your money blocks. So we also talked about prosperity consciousness. We talked about clarifying your why and amplifying your voice and your values in the world. We talked about 5-element wealth, WELLTH, and how that creates a foundation for prosperity. And we talked about prosperity consciousness being the embodiment of trust. So if you remember, you may remember. If you don't remember, go back a couple of episodes and listen to that episode. It was a longer one and a very insightful episode. I've gotten so much good feedback already from that show. But the 6 blocks we talked about were, number 1, hard work equals success. So that means that we have to work really hard to bring in income. Most of you can may be able to relate to that on some level. That was mine. The second one was money's not spiritual. So this can happen in spiritual, services, yoga teachers and coaches and healers. The next one, belief or block, is that money is evil. So maybe you've had an experience where you felt taken advantage of, or you experienced betrayal and it was something over money. The next one was some type of block or belief around scarcity or debt or failure. Maybe something happened in your life where you lost everything, or a failed marriage ended up in a financial loss, or maybe you experienced something as a young child and just witnessing what your parents were going through. The next one is just our beliefs about wealthy people. Wealthy people are greedy, they're bad, they're selfish, they're self-centered, they're penny pinchers, something like that you've been taught. And then lastly is just an inner misalignment to believing that money is aligned with your personal values and beliefs, which I strongly encourage you to consider, that you get to amplify your voice and your values in the world allowing money as a vehicle for change. Those were the 6 blocks that we worked through. Again, if you want to dive deeper, I'd encourage you to join our course, because within each of those areas, I have about 20 different sayings that you've probably heard if you're having a hard time identifying with one, or you've heard yourself say. And then last week, we uncovered the money saboteurs. There are 7 of them. The first one is the people pleaser. I know many of you enjoyed my podcast episode on the toxic cycle of people pleasing, so that one is for you. In each category, we listed things that they'll say, what their needs are, and how they often show up. The second one is the martyr, so the person who's always doing and giving for others, secretly hoping for something in return, and just not open to receiving. The third one is the fixer. It's always easier to fix somebody else's problems than your own. The fourth one is the victim, the person who truly believes that they're hopeless, nobody can help them. They always choose to see the negative side of things. They don't choose to see the possibility or what's available. The fifth one is the tyrant. This is the controller. This is the one that usually has a little bit more financial success and can make money look bad. They're usually greedy. They're probably not trustworthy, and they're very image focused. The sixth one is the free spirit. I've seen quite a few of these in spiritual communities that I've been a part of over the past 10 years. Yoga community or coaching community, just healers that want to give from the heart and don't really charge their worth, which I think I had a little bit of that probably early on as well. And kind of that manifestation, I'm just going to manifest and it's just going to come magically. You might get lucky once or twice, but if you really don't understand the energetics and the frequency of money as being a vehicle for change, then you're probably not going to get lucky too many times. And then lastly, number 7 was the saver. So this is the penny pincher. This is the analytical buyer, the researcher that has to have test results in order to take action or is more likely to invest on a certification than personal development. This is the person who doesn't really trust. So this week we're going to dive into creating your empowering money story. So hopefully by now you have an idea of what your money blocks are and what your money saboteur is. And this week we're going to relate it to your attachment style. Many of you are probably familiar with this theory from Mary Ainsworth, I believe is how you pronounce it. There's might be a couple of different attachment style theories. This is the one I related to particularly. In considering just how attachment styles might relate to how we choose to use money in our lives. So, now that you've identified your money saboteur, it's time to get clear on how this is showing up in your life. Hopefully, you're inspired to take a look at your finances and ask yourself, is my credit card and my schedule aligned with my values? That's a good place to start because time and money are where your values are. So is that reflecting what you say your values are? And I can remember in 2018, I shared with you on the first podcast episode, was really it was the first time I hired a business coach and a money mindset coach. I was shifting from coaching to being a business owner. And I didn't really think I had issues with money. And what inspired me to create this course, as I shared with most of you, was really losing everything in my business on a failed business partnership and almost walking away from it and then seeing the gift through understanding scarcity because I had never really understood scarcity before that allowed me to create this course. So I can remember at that time uncovering the unhealthy aspects of my relationship to money and then also noticing the other areas of my life that this feeling was showing up in. And when we can understand it and see it, when we can witness it, and we choose to continue witnessing it, like when it shows up, then we can choose to redirect that and create a new empowering money story. And so what we're going to go through today that can be super helpful is identifying your behavior. And your behavior and your patterns usually come through your basic needs. And one of the ways that we're going to understand it for the purposes of what we're moving through over the next few weeks is through attachment style theory. So there's 4 primary basic needs that we can understand from what I have learned through compassionate communication. And the 4 needs are a need for safety, which is usually when we feel unsafe or we need to control, a need to be loved, or the belief that we're only loved when. So you can see the need for safety is probably going to be the tyrant because they're very controlling. The need to be loved is probably going to be the people pleaser. The need for support, the one that feels helpless, is probably going to be the victim. The need to be good enough to be seen, heard, or appreciated could be the people pleaser, could be the martyr. So that one can go hand in hand, either the need to be loved or good enough. So basic needs, need for safety, need to be loved, need to be supported, or the need to feel good enough. Of course, there could be many other needs that we can put in the box here. So I would just invite you to consider what your basic primary need may be. Understanding your attachment style helps you to understand how you respond in your needs and the way that you relate to the world. We're constantly in a co-creation and relationship with everything in life, including money, love, our health, our body, our emotions, our coworkers, the planet, everything in our life we're in a co-creation with. The attachment style theory, what I share in my group is from Mary Ainsworth, where it brings awareness to our relationships with people and how we create attachment styles from an early age. Bringing awareness to our attachment style can help us navigate decision-making patterns and develop healthy relationships in our lives. We can use the attachment style theory as it relates to money. So the 4 attachment styles that, for the purposes of this course that we're going to go through, and I'm going to drop the link in the show notes so that you can discover more of this or you can expand on it. Maybe you've learned an expanded version of the attachment style theory, is secure, insecure, which can also be avoidant, dismissive, anxious, and disorganized. Disorganized can also be thought of as fearful, avoidant. So secure generally can trust fairly easily, is attuned to emotions, can communicate upsets directly, and leads with cooperative and flexible behavior in relationships. Usually some of us may live in this space sometimes, but most of us dip the toe in one of the other 3 styles as well. Anxious has a sensitive nervous system, struggles with communicating directly and clearly, tends to act out when triggered. Avoidant dismissive, or what we're calling insecure, downplays the importance of relationships, is usually extremely self-reliant, can become more vulnerable when there's a big crisis. Avoidant fearful, also sometimes referred to as disorganized, can appear to be more dependent in relationships than the avoidant dismissive because they're a little bit more fearful. They strongly fear rejection. They have lower self-esteem and high anxiety in relationships. So if this is new to you, I would encourage you to dive a little bit deeper into this because this can really help you with different relationships in your life. And for the purposes of this course, we're going to explore how it affects our relationship with money. So the secure attachment style feels confident and secure. They're able to form healthy relationships. They feel unconditionally loved. They feel safe and their needs are met. They're able to seek and communicate and receive support. So they're able to also receive money. They appear confident and empowered in decision making. So they make clear decisions. They don't sit in indecision. They don't have buyer's remorse. They make a decision and they feel good about it. They don't question or have regrets. They invest in themselves. So they would be conscious investors and not unconscious spenders. They are centered, grounded, their needs are met. They're able to make requests for their needs. They take self-responsibility and they're able to self-regulate emotions. And they are in relationships that are balanced. They are, as far as a money saboteur, they might appear to be the saver or the investor. So it's when the saver becomes the investor and consciously chooses to invest rather than unconsciously spend that they step into investor. Because if you remember, the saboteur of the saver is the one who will buy 3 of something because it's on sale, not really saving money, or they'll, spend money on things that aren't really that important versus what actually moves the needle. The insecure, dismissive, avoidant attachment style theory when it comes to your relationship with money is going to be the person who's unable to express emotions. They often avoid intimacy, and so intimacy is directly related to your ability to receive. They accept and believe that others are unreliable, so they can be very untrusting. They feel unloved and undervalued. They don't seek comfort, and they don't receive very well. They feel anxious, but they don't really show it that easily. They can come across as like they've got it all under control. They might even appear to be calm, but under the surface, there's a little chaos happening. Sometimes they seek validation. They avoid emotional conversations. Sometimes they're emotionally unavailable and they shut down just to protect themselves. Oftentimes, these people will appear to be very independent. You may remember my podcast episode, Is Your Extreme Independence a Trauma Response? They can sometimes, in my experience with relationship to money, they can generate income with ease, but they're probably missing intimacy and connection in other parts of their life. Not every time, but a lot of times. They may or may not tend to track or budget and be intentional with money. Sometimes the saboteurs that show up in this attachment style are the free spirit, the tyrant, and the martyr. The attachment style of the anxious attachment style theory is the one who lacks trust. Their needs are not met. They need to feel safe and they need approval. They generally become emotionally dependent as adults. Their relationship with money is one where they may use money to feel good, so that instant gratification. They have a fear of abandonment. They like to stay busy and preoccupied. Sometimes they might feel hopeless or overwhelmed. They may be people pleasers. They may be overthinkers. All of these are great coping strategies. They may turn the positive into negative. They may be codependent on others, such as a codependent, energy sensitive, or empath. They may have a subconscious need to feel worthy, and they may inherently feel low self-worth, but it might not be super obvious. They often have a need to belong. And the saboteur that shows up for this attachment style theory is the fixer and the people pleaser. Lastly, we have the fearful, avoidant, or disorganized attachment style, which is a mix between the anxious and the avoidant. This is a person who lacks emotional integrity. They might have emotional outbursts. They have a lack of intimacy. They have a fear of getting too close to people and being vulnerable. They struggle to express positive emotions. They often feel frustration and anger, and they fear rejection. This can feel like the most challenging to navigate if you're in a relationship with somebody with this particular type of attachment style, or you know that this is you. You might find that you have a difficult time committing. You may struggle with investing in yourself. You may break promises, contracts, and commitments. And you might be the type of person who projects and blames and doesn't take self-responsibility. So this is often the fixer or the victim. So the fixer and the victim, they both, and maybe even the martyr, just because it's that energy of like putting responsibility on somebody else to get your needs met, but in different ways. So when it comes to your money origin story and your money saboteur, I want to invite you to think with these attachment styles, which one can you relate to? And which underlying need do you notice comes up for you? So the attachment styles are the secure, the insecure or avoidant dismissive, the anxious, and the disorganized, the fearful avoidant. And the 4 basic needs are the need for safety, the need to be loved, unconditionally loved. I think we should put that in there. The need for support, or the need to be good enough. So think about the last time in your life you had an opportunity to take action in some way in your life that required an investment or an amount of money. Maybe it was a vacation, maybe it was a new car, maybe it was a dress for a girls' night out, maybe it was your children's education, maybe it was some self-care, maybe it was a holistic doctor versus conventional. But when was the last time that you were met with an opportunity to make a decision to invest or spend in some way? And how did you feel about it? Did you get like a really heavy feeling in your gut? Did you go into your thoughts? Did you keep yourself distracted with being analytical? You're probably the fixer. Did you freeze in indecision? You might be a people pleaser or the martyr. Did you put it off? Did you procrastinate? In other words, the dismissive avoidant attachment style. So we can look at the saboteurs and the attachment styles in ways that we show up when there's an opportunity for us to invest in ourselves. So I want to just invite you to consider for a moment how that showed up for you. So just taking a moment to just think, when was the last time I had an opportunity to invest in myself? And how did I respond? So one of the tools I've talked about throughout my podcast program every now and then is a tool that I love to share with people in my community and that I have used, which I call compassionate communication, but is really nonviolent communication. We'll put that link in the show notes as well. There's a 4-step process, and that process is stating the facts, sharing how we felt based on 6 to 8 primary emotions, where we take self-responsibility for our emotions. You can check out the Gloria Wilcox Emotions Wheel for help on that. And then understanding our needs. So if you go to the NVC website, you will find the feelings and needs list. So stating the facts, how it made us feel, what our needs were, and then make a request. And we can do that when it comes to making financial decisions because it's an empowering way to make decisions. And so I'm going to invite you to get your pen and we're going to write, you're going to fill in the blank as I say a statement. Based on my money origin story and the pattern I recognize through my money saboteur. So remember those money blocks in the saboteur and my attachment style. So hopefully you have some clarity or understanding of kind of where this is showing up for you. The need that was not met is blank. That's the important part, is understanding that we create survivor strategies to get our needs met because our needs have not been met. So what is the need for you that hasn't been met? Because your response has become your coping strategy. The next sentence is, since then I recognize I've adapted and created the survivor strategy or attachment style of blank. So think about your attachment style as it relates to money. Do you avoid making major decisions? Do you get overwhelmed when making major decisions or any decision to invest or spend, like it's time to buy a new car or it's time to pay for maintenance on your car? How do you respond? Your child wants to switch schools and go to private school. And how do you respond? You haven't taken a vacation in a year and it's time to look at taking a vacation. Or you get invited to do something. You get an invitation for support or to collaborate. Do you freeze up? Are you indecisive? So my attachment style is blank, and that makes me feel blank. So how do you feel about the fact that you've been avoiding something that you know is going to be good for you? You believe it's too expensive to have that annual yoga membership or gym membership or to invest in a nutritionist to change your eating habits or to invest in a coach that's going to help you change your life or to go on that vacation that's like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. How does it make you feel that you've been missing out on those things because of your attachment style? And what is it keeping you from doing? I recognize it's keeping me from blank, which is costing me to stay where I am. So that's what we have to get super clear about, is when we say no, we kind of have to start to do this cost analysis of like what you're giving up to stay where you are is so much more valuable than staying where you are. So think about that for a moment. And sometimes in the end, you end up spending more money trying to get a need met that could have been met if you had taken aligned action earlier on. The next sentence I want you to fill in the blank is, what I want is blank, and the step I'm willing to take is blank. So what do you want to change? And what step are you willing to take? You don't have to know the results. The results are the journey. You don't have to have a guarantee. You don't have to have something validate you. That's what embodied trust is. That's how we get to prosperity. What's just the next step you're willing to take? Now we're going to get clear on bringing more clarity to what you may identify is your core money wound. So if prosperity is embodied trust, this is going to be the hardest for those that live in scarcity, because the antidote for scarcity is to take a risk through embodied trust. But this is how we activate trust, is by creating a new belief and taking a new action on who we're becoming, not who we've been. So fill in the blank here. The money wound I have is blank. So just kind of thinking about everything we talked about. Your money blocks, your money origin story, your money saboteur, your attachment style. What's keeping you from receiving and flourishing and living in abundance? Are you avoidant and too much of a free spirit? Are you hustling and overworking so much that you're not aligned? You're not doing all the right things in your business? Or you're not letting love into your life? You're working so hard you don't even have time to welcome in your soulmate? Or you're not taking care of your health? This money wound, whatever you come up with, is going to give you clarity on what you don't want in your life. That's how we transmute the wound into the gift. I talk a lot about leading from your gifts, not your wounds. So the clarity I have, fill in the blank here, the clarity I have around what I don't want and what doesn't work for me is this. So for me, it's the former perfectionist, overachiever, high performer that actually the most financially abundant years that I have had have been when I have been completely embodied and aligned energetically with clarity to what mattered most. It wasn't in the number of hours that I worked or how hard I worked. A lot of times my quote hard work and the hours I put in were honestly a kind of a waste of time. Not really a waste, but like a misuse because I wasn't aligned. So some of you might relate to that. That's just my story. You have your story. Now that I know what doesn't work for me, I'm clear that what I don't want is this, and I'm clear that what I do want, or I do want to change, is this. So if you're somebody who lives in scarcity and lack of trust, you need external validation, you have to go ask all your girlfriends, like, you have to get their validation before you say yes to yourself for something, or you have to even get your husband's permission. Now, I know that obviously if you're in a partnership, in a marriage, this should be something that you're talking about. And I would encourage you to be empowered in your requests and share the value of what something means to you if you're choosing to invest in something. So I'm clear on that what I want is this. Do you want time freedom, financial freedom? Do you want to not worry about money anymore? Do you want to be able to trust people? Do you want to be able to feel fulfilled in both your career and your marriage? Do you want to welcome love into your life? Do you want to open up to receiving more support? Do you want to open up to more time freedom? What do you want to do? And then we're going to go through the list of the basic needs just for everybody here, because one of them is going to resonate with you more. It is now safe to blank. Maybe it's safe to make a decision on the car maintenance that you're being invited to make a decision on. Maybe it's safe for you to plan that family vacation. Maybe it's safe for you to invest in that coach who's going to help you change your life. Maybe it's safe for you to invest in that yoga teacher certification or buy that house. Maybe it's safe for you to say no to something. Maybe you're the people pleaser. It's time to say no. And then the next sentence is, and I am worthy of blank. So what is it that you most need? Support, financial freedom, time freedom, joy, love. Because it's all the same energy. Prosperity and abundance. It's the receiving in life force energy. And then for those that struggle with knowing that they're lovable, filling in the blank around this, I am lovable, loving, and loved, and therefore I can invest in myself and my life by blank. This could be time with others. Time is a resource that we can invest. It could be healthier foods. It could be a teacher. It could be a vacation. What are you willing and able to invest in because you know that you're worthy of it? Fill in the blank for this next one. This is the one that is for those that can sometimes feel hopeless. I believe in opportunity and possibility, which means I believe blank about money. I believe there's an abundance. I believe it's available to me. I believe that whatever I want can flow to me. I am ready and able to receive unexpectedly. So take a moment to take a look at what you wrote down and just notice what insights you're taking away from this week around creating your empowering money story. And if it's new for you to understand emotions and needs, I would invite you to dig a little deeper in that, because it's a really powerful tool when we start to understand how we respond. Because a lot of times what I've discovered is most people don't know what their needs are. And a lot of times we're using incorrect statements around emotions. We're blaming somebody else for how we feel, which doesn't take ownership for how we feel. We can't shift something we don't have ownership over. If we're blaming other people, if we're saying we're disappointed because you did this, well, that's not a true emotion, because that places expectation on someone else. In order to create our money empowering story, we've now created awareness around our blocks, our saboteurs, our attachment style. We've listed possible beliefs around the basic needs. We've listed beliefs around what might be possible, that we're willing to believe in opportunities if we feel safe, around our worthiness, around our ability to be loved. And so how we shift this, once we bring awareness to it, there's a 4-step process. We bring awareness to it. We accept and we do this for any type of belief, but we come into acceptance for the stories, the people that have been a part of creating those original blocks and stories. You may remember last week, one of the journal prompts is, who am I willing to forgive for the beliefs that have been created? So we go from awareness to acceptance, which is where the shift begins to occur, because we're not avoiding it, we're transmuting it. We're in acceptance of where we are and the experiences that brought us here. And then we create a new empowering belief that we want to believe. And I love to do this through the reticular activating system. We can create a journal prompt such as, I wonder what it'll be like when I feel safe in my decision making around money. Or what's it going to feel like when 6 months from now I'm looking back at the person who invested in herself? What's it going to feel like when I take that leap of faith and invest in myself to get to that next level of expansion? So recognizing what you think and feel and what you've believed around money, and the people who contributed to those beliefs, the feelings that you were feeling, and accepting them without judging them, without making them wrong, helps to shift them. We don't blame, we take responsibility for the coping strategies that we've created. And so I'm going to invite you to put this statement down on your paper. My old belief around money, that blank, has served me to my highest good. I honor it for its experiences, the people, places, and things that brought me there. And I'm now ready to shift. So my old money belief was blank. It's helped me grow and gain clarity on what I'm ready for. I now consciously choose to discover and align to a new perspective and a new belief. And this is my new chosen empowering belief. If you need to dig a little bit deeper, if it feels really hard to let go, then make a list of your old money story, the lessons you learned, the gratitude you can have for the lessons you learned, how the lessons have helped you. I shared my story with you. I never ever wanted to talk about money. And at the same time, I also noticed that every time I witness women in decision making, the two excuses they come up with is I don't have the money or the time. And I believe we are the source of money and time. So I believe that we get to choose how that energy works for us. So what we really mean to say is it's not aligned with my values at this time, or it's not a priority for me at this time. Because that's what you're really saying. And I went through my own difficult, challenging story of betrayal where, after having 10 years of a thriving coaching business, entered a very unhealthy co-creation business relationship that then took me into scarcity. And that was how I was able to create this. So I am grateful for that experience because it was an investment in myself. It was an investment in how much I believe in myself to offer this service. And it gave me the gift of this course to share with others. I would have never been able to create this had I not endured that challenging time. And I had already had the health crisis. So I had already really mastered health and integrative living emotionally, mentally, and physically, and spiritually. So the financial piece was something I never really thought about until I had that experience, which is now the fifth element to well-being because it creates choice and freedom. So just notice what's shifted in your perception around money. My old belief was this. My new chosen belief is this. And if you're still struggling with this, there's an exercise you can do, which is going on a date with money. And you literally go on a date with money and have a conversation with money as if it's a person. You can tell them that you felt rejected or abandoned or misunderstood, that it wasn't there for you when you needed it. You can tell them how much what you'll do when it comes back into your life. You could write a love letter to money, telling him how grateful you are. It might sound crazy, but it's just an energy. It's a relationship, because what it's really telling you is how you're responding to your situation. And if this is something that you want to heal, if you want to feel true freedom around it, whether it actually changes your financial income or abundance or not, it's going to shift your relationship, which is going to create an expansion and allow more into your life. It's going to allow more abundance in different ways into your life. You could also write a completion letter to money. We've done this before with like mother and father woundings. A completion letter is blaming, first of all. Blaming and forgiving money for not being there. Maybe you had to grow up on food stamps, or you couldn't be a dancer as a little kid because your parents couldn't pay for it. You couldn't do what you wanted to do. The second thing is you write the thank you. Thank you for being there when, because there have been times that it has shown up, I'm sure. The third is you write an apology. I'm sorry for not appreciating you. I'm sorry for not managing you. I'm sorry for not paying attention to you. I'm sorry for making a mistake or spending unconsciously. You create a new boundary, what you're willing to be available for and not. So for me in my life, when I went through that challenging area of around my business, I'm no longer available for a particular type of energy, a particular type of person, which happened to be a narcissistic energy, but I'm just no longer available really for business partnership. I'm no longer available for trusting others more than I do myself, which, I mean, sounds easier said than done. And then the fifth thing would be moving forward. I choose this. That would be your completion letter. So if you've listened to the podcast before, you've probably done that with mom and dad, but we can do that with money as well. You can, one of those three options for the money date, either being angry at them, writing them a love letter, or a completion letter is something that you can do. So a couple of bonus journal prompts you could go through this week is the invitation to just really ask yourself, like, what is my relationship with money? Is it healthy? Can I trust it? Is there still scarcity? What mistakes have I made that I'm ready to forgive? I've had a couple of clients that have had a little bit of trauma around hiring other coaches, and they've had really bad experiences, and they felt taken advantage of for a lot of money, and they've had to forgive themselves for a debt that it created, or for not showing up in a course that they invested in. I've had a couple of those things happen. Again, you have to take self-responsibility for your decisions. Always take self-responsibility. So who am I ready to forgive, or what do I need to forgive? And maybe just be curious about, like, what is your definition of financial freedom and prosperity? And then lastly, asking yourself, looking over the last week or even the show today, what have I learned and how did I grow? Super important to reflect as we grow so that we can have gratitude for how we're learning. Thank you for your willingness to spend another week with me. I hope you're enjoying this as much as we are in the prosperity course. If you're interested in expanding into this, then check out the link to the course. So thank you so much for joining. I hope that you're learning a lot. Feel free to share all that you're learning, the curious insights and revelations that you're having. Women have already shared uncovering relationships to debt and guilt and shame, and the extremely independent women who've blocked themselves from receiving. So that's a lot of what we've uncovered in our group these past couple weeks. Thank you so much for joining with love and aloha. Have a fantastic week. I'll see you back next week. And next week is we're going to cover attuning, the attunement to the frequency of wealth. And so understanding that it's an energy. And this is where we get into rewriting our beliefs around wealth. So I look forward to seeing you again next week. Aloha.
The content of this podcast is to educate, inspire, and inform you of pathways to an embodied healing self. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice from your medical doctor, therapist, registered dietitian, or nutritionist for any questions you may have regarding your diagnosis or condition.
Hello, friends, and thank you so much for joining again each week on the Body and Soul Wisdom podcast. I am so deeply honored to share this space with you every week. I know that there are many other podcasts that you could be tuning into, and our community is expanding and growing more with each new episode. I'd like to invite you to come on over to jenmons.com/tribe and receive some of the wonderful gifts that we have for you: a meditation bundle, energetic alignment, 5-element wealth, prosperity consciousness. We have a ton of different gifts available for you to enjoy. Now, we have one small favor to ask. In order for this podcast to get into the hearts and souls of like and light-minded people, we need your support. We would love your review and would love it if you'd head on over to jenmons.com/podcast to leave a review or leave one on iTunes so that we can continue to share the love beyond out into the world. Thank you so much again for joining in. We'll see you next week.